My second most successful video ever in terms of views, having been watched by more than 1 million people, was a video looking at 7 countries where football isn't the most popular sport. The likes of Canada and India featured in that video, where sports like ice hockey and cricket respectively enjoy far greater interest and affection. Those two do at least have national football teams though, with Canada ranking 78th in FIFA's world rankings and India down in 103rd. There are 211 FIFA-affiliated national teams worldwide, despite the fact there are only 195 independent states that are fully recognised by the United Nations. That may seem a little bizarre, but it's simply because there are some dependent states like Gibraltar and the Faroe Islands who have their own independent FIFA-affiliated national teams, whilst England, Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland count as 4 different national football teams, despite the fact they are just one independent nation called the United Kingdom when it comes to the UN's numbers. And lastly, there are some disputed and partially recognised territories like Kosovo and Taiwan who have fully affiliated FIFA national teams despite not being recognised by the UN as fully ratified independent states. Now, in spite of all that, there are still some countries that are recognised by the UN but are not affiliated with FIFA. When we say a country doesn't have a national football team, we mean a FIFA affiliated national team. Some do have teams that represent them in unofficial CONIFA or Ireland type tournaments, although there is one, just one, that literally has never had anything resembling a football team represent them in any capacity. Here are 7 countries that don't have a national football team. Tuvalu. We're going to be seeing a fair bit of the Oceania region in this 7, and getting us started in 7th place is the remote island nation of Tuvalu. Located roughly midway between Hawaii and Australia, and that means they're around 2,500 miles away from each by the way, scientists have suggested that rising sea levels mean Tuvalu could actually be one of the first nations on Earth to drown and fully disappear beneath the ocean. Some of you may know Tuvalu better by its old name of the Ellis Islands, which it was given by Europeans in the early 1800s. Tuvalu, or the Ellis Islands as they were then known, became part of the British Empire in the 1890s as part of a joint treaty between the Germans and the British. Isn't it bizarre how 2 European countries just decide who owns a tiny island thousands of miles away? Anyhow, Tuvalu gained independence and became part of the British Commonwealth in 1978, becoming the 189th member of the United Nations in the year 2000. Tuvalu's national football team play out of the 1,500 capacity Tuvalu Sports Ground, but despite being members of the OFC, they're not FIFA affiliated. There are only 11,000 people in Tuvalu, where football doesn't even reign supreme, so it should come as a little surprise that the Tuvalu national representative team are no great shakes. They've routinely struggled in the Pacific Games and even came last in their 2018 CONIFA World Cup group. They are, however, reportedly seeking FIFA affiliation now. Nauru. Staying in Oceania for now, we come to Nauru, which is the 4th smallest country on Earth in terms of landmass and the 3rd smallest in terms of population. Between 13 and 14,000 people live on the 8.1 square mile island in the South Pacific Ocean. Nauru changed hands a fair bit during the 20th century, having been claimed by the German Empire during the 1800s. At a time when it was often known as the Pleasant Islands, Nauru came under the joint control of Australia, New Zealand and the United Kingdom during the First World War, before being occupied by the Japanese during the Second World War. After the conflicts, Nauru was taken into United Nations trusteeship, finally declaring independence in 1968. However, once Nauru's phosphate rock resources had been exhausted through mining, the nation fell on difficult times financially. It briefly served as a tax haven and money laundering capital, before becoming increasingly dependent on Australia for financial aid. Despite the financial difficulties, Nauru has the highest rate of obesity and type 2 diabetes on Earth, with 97% of the male population either overweight or obese and 93% of all females. Now, with a population of around 13,500 people and 97% of the males being overweight or obese, that leaves just 195 potential footballers on the island. Factor in the fact that some of them are presumably under the age of 10 and over the age of 50, and the fact that football is about the 10th most popular sport in Nauru, it's little wonder Nauru really doesn't have a national team at all. Nauru has never had an official national team in any capacity, and a team representing the island in football has only ever played twice, once in 1994 to play a team of expatriate workers from the Solomon Islands, and once in 2014 to play a team from the highly controversial Nauru Regional Processing Centre. Vatican City. The smallest nation-state on Earth in terms of both population and area, the Vatican City, is just 110 acres in size and has a settled population of just 1,000 people. A tiny city-state which is enclaved within the Italian capital of Rome, the Vatican City, is run by the Holy See and ruled by the head of the Roman Catholic Church, otherwise known as the Pope. The Vatican City in its current form came into being as a result of the Lateran Treaty between the Holy See and Italy in 1929. Due to its tiny population and the enormous number of tourists which flock to the Vatican every year, the state does have some rather unusual statistical anomalies, such as having by far the most crime of any nation on Earth per capita. The vast majority of these cases are petty crimes, however, such as pickpocketing and shoplifting, which are far from the worst crimes that one associates with the Vatican. It may surprise you, but the Vatican City has had a representative team, and far more regularly than Nauru. Neither FIFA nor UEFA affiliated, the Vatican played their first unofficial match in 1994 against a San Marino B team, drawing 0-0. A team representing the Vatican has played 14 times in total, with a team made up of Swiss guards, police officers, and postal workers that live in the Vatican City itself. The Vatican players were briefly coached by Italian boss Giovanni Trapattoni in 2010. Kiribati. Moving on to fourth, and surprise surprise, we're back in the Pacific Ocean. Not literally, thankfully, but the nation we're talking about is, and that nation is Kiribati. Much larger than any of the nations who have preceded it in this 7, Kiribati is a collection of 33 islands with a population of over 110,000 people. Kiribati was also declared as part of the British Protectorate in 1892 and became a crown colony in 1916. Nuclear tests were conducted on the islands by the United States and the United Kingdom during the 1950s and 60s before declaring independence as the Republic of Kiribati in 1979. Like Tuvalu, Kiribati is in real danger of being lost forever due to rising sea levels, and the government has already started buying up land elsewhere, encouraging citizens to move and requesting that New Zealand and Australia accept Kiribati citizens as permanent immigrants. The Kiribati national football team aren't FIFA members, but are OFC affiliated. They have played 10 games in total since 1979, all coming in the 1979, 2003, and 2011 Pacific Games, and they've lost every single one of them. They lost 24-0 to Fiji in their first representative match, and the closest they've come to winning a game was a thrill draw with Tuvalu, which they ultimately lost on penalties. This is the 2,500 capacity Beris National Stadium, so I'm assuming that it is mostly standing, and I'm not quite sure where the grass is. The Federated States of Micronesia. Although often referred to simply as Micronesia, the region known as Micronesia and the Federated States of Micronesia are not to be confused. The Federated States of Micronesia is an independent republic made up of 4 states covering over 600 islands. Meanwhile, the region known as Micronesia, which includes the Federated States of Micronesia, is a sub-region of Oceania made up of thousands of islands divided among several countries. Often abbreviated to FSM, the Federated States of Micronesia was formerly United Nations Trust Territory under US supervision, but formed their own government in 1979, declaring independence in 1986. Prior to that, FSM had been owned by the Spanish, who sold the islands to Germany in 1899. The Germans ran FSM as part of German Guyana up until 1914, when the islands were conquered by the Japanese, falling into the hands of the UN following the end of World War I. Baseball is the most popular sport in FSM, and the country has neither a FIFA nor an OFC affiliated national football team. There have been FSM representative sides, although none have played since 2003. An FSM representative side first took to the field 2 decades ago, playing Guam 3 times in June 1999 and losing on every occasion. They have played just 7 games since then, beating the Northern Mariana Islands, but suffering heavy defeats to Tonga and Papua New Guinea. FSM did send a representative under-23 side to the 2015 Pacific Games, where they played 3 group games against Tahiti, Fiji, and Vanuatu. They lost 30-0 to Tahiti, 38-0 to Fiji, and 46-0 to Vanuatu, finishing bottom of their group with a minus 114 goal difference. Monaco. A country that will be a lot more familiar to a lot of our viewers, over 70% of which hail from either Europe or the United States, Monaco is the second smallest independent state on Earth. It's also the most densely populated, with close to 40,000 residents on what is essentially a tiny slice of land in the Côte d'Azur. With no income tax and very low business rates, Monaco is renowned for being a tax haven, which results in the country having the highest number of millionaires and billionaires per capita in the world, as well as having the most expensive real estate on the planet. Monaco is a little unusual in this 7, in the sense that despite lacking a recognised national football team, the country does have rich footballing and sporting pedigree. Instead of a national side, Monaco focused their efforts on having a successful club side, and that investment has paid dividends. AS Monaco have won 8 Ligue 1 titles, trailing only Marseille and Saint Etienne on that front. They've won 16 trophies in total, and they reached the 2004 Champions League final. What's more, Monaco is also famous for having hosted the Monaco Grand Prix since 1929, widely regarded as one of the most prestigious and entertaining races in the entire F1 calendar. Along with the Vatican and the United Kingdom, Monaco is the only other sovereign state in Europe that doesn't have a national football team that is affiliated with either FIFA or UEFA, although the 4 nations that make up the United Kingdom do have their own teams, hence why I didn't include them here. Monaco have had representative sides that have played 20 fixtures in total between 2001 and 2014, enjoying victories over the likes of the Vatican and Tibet, but suffering heavy defeats to Kosovo and Saudi. The Marshall Islands. The Marshall Islands, or the Republic of the Marshall Islands to give them their official title, simply have to top this 7, and it will soon become clear why. Like Monaco, the Marshall Islands has sometimes been considered a tax haven with only 2 brackets of income tax at 8% and 12%, as well as only 3% corporate tax on revenue. Unlike Monaco, the Marshall Islands has absolutely no love affair with football. The Marshall Islands don't just lack a FIFA or OFC affiliated national team, they lack any kind of interest in football at all. The country has no formal league, no recognised governing body, and is the only sovereign state on earth with absolutely no record of any kind of representative side having played a fixture ever. You may be noticing a theme here among Pacific Ocean nations, and the Marshall Islands are another who went from being owned by Spain, sold to Germany, conquered by Japan in World War I, and taken under the wing of the UN as an associate nation of the United States during World War II. The result has been quite an Americanised culture, and the most popular sports on the islands are basketball, baseball, and volleyball. The Marshall Islands are located within the region of Micronesia and are made up of 1,156 islands in total, although more than half of the country's population of over 53,000 live in the capital and largest city/island of Majuro. The United States conducted nuclear weapons testing on the islands in the 1940s and 50s, and the Marshall Islands is now home to the largest shark sanctuary on Earth. That's it for Alfie's fun facts about small nations without national football teams. Tune in at the same time next week for similarly enthralling content. In all seriousness, thank you all for watching, I hope you enjoyed the video. I'm aware that it was a slightly different one, but someone did request it, and I love stuff like this. Give us a thumbs up if you do too, and do of course, make sure you're subscribed to HITC 7s, it would be reckless not to be at this stage really.